sustained wealth does require action from us. So spirit can take us to the door, can open the door, can encourage us. It's only an invitation to walk through the door. A lot of people don't walk through the door because it's scary. Often they might have to put their neck out there. They might have to ask an angel investor for something, or do this idea, or just do something that they perceive is something that they would, quote unquote, never do or never be capable of. But spirit's always going to dream bigger for us than we can dream for ourselves. But it's up to us to actually do the work, the legwork.
Together, we go out there. Together, we begin to share. Together, we find our way. Together.
Good to see you back here on Mentory TV. And today we're going to get very spiritual. Folks that have been following my channel know by now that I'm not your, normal kind of person that just goes through life like a zombie. But I try to be conscious, conscientious, and I do believe in energy. So, as to say, angels is certainly something we should talk about. And today I have Corin Grillo on the show. Now, she is a best-selling author. Her first book that came out was called The Angel Experiment. And today we're going to talk about this book. She released a few months ago called Angel Wealth Magic, Simple Steps to Hire the Divine. I like that one, Corin. And unlock your miraculous financial flow. Corin, thank you so much for being on the show. Everybody that wants to know a little bit more about you can find you on your website. You're also a trained psychologist, you're a marriage counselor, you're a family therapist. There's so many aspects to you, which is wonderful, which is basically in the realm of self-development and developing other people for their own good. So welcome to Mentory TV.
Thanks so much for having me. Such an honor to be here with you.
Well, listen, Corin, looking not only at your book, but also at you doing my research, seeing you also online, you're very present, which I think is super cool, the conversations you have, and also your own shows you put out there. I would like to know, how did you get where you are right now as a person?
Yeah, well, that's a very complicated question. However, it's quite simple at the same time. I got here through a series of torturous events in my early life, I would say. I struggled a lot, and I turned a real corner when I encountered the angels, and it very much wasn't an encounter So when that encounter happened, I witnessed a miracle. And from that point, it was like leaving one world and stepping into another. And so what happened for me, whereas before I struggled with extreme levels of depression, had a pretty rough go in my early life. And when the angels entered, it was as if it just opened up a road to new possibilities. And I started hearing a different voice inside of me, kind of encouraging me to live life differently and to do different things. And some of those things were very provocative, like talking about angels instead of just being the average psychotherapist, right? So that was a very big change. But slowly but surely, I came out of the angel closet, the spiritual closet. And when I did, it literally, it's been miracle after miracle since that first miracle. So where I stand today is just supremely mind-blowing if I really stop and let myself take it in.
What I find interesting here is already what you said. There's so much to unpack and to delve into. When you say you were depressed or you were at a very difficult moment in your life, as far as I gather, you actually had a life. Yeah, you already were a trained psychologist. You had a family. You had, I guess, a day-to-day routine. But behind that, not everything was okay, which was also, of course, partly, I guess, due to the experiences you had maybe as a child, as a teenager, that led you to this kind of feeling. Even though you were functioning, it wasn't really you.
Yeah, and I think like so many of us who are really wear a good public mask, and we're doing our best to grind through it, white knuckle through it, do the right thing. And all I had back then was the formula that was given, like, okay, your secret to joy and happiness is marriage, children, get a career. So I did my best, and I did pretty good considering what was my early 20s. And I mean, it was a hot mess. So I eventually found my way into what many would call a life. But there was a darkness that I struggled with because of the shadow essentially that followed me that I was not necessarily addressing. So I think when you live with a heart that's kind of locked, or a mind that's kind of locked towards the negative, you just get used to it, and it becomes like a walking zombie. And a lot of us don't know we're in that state until something happens, until we get relief. And that is what happened for me. It was like a lightning bolt, and all of a sudden I felt joy and happy, and I didn't loathe my life every morning when I woke up, whereas before I would just like really not want to go into the day. When this authentic relationship with spirit formed, which was nothing I was counting on or expecting. I'm not a religious person. It was a game changer.
Yeah, no, that I find super interesting, and I totally can empathize with it. And you always think maybe it's just a phase when you wake up and you actually have that darkness to you, you have that emptiness, or you wake up out of lack, not out of anything, even though around you everything functions, and you make sure everything functions, and you just say, hey, what is wrong with me? What am I complaining about? I've got a husband, I've got kids, I'm this, I've got friends, they love me all, and still. When you are then by yourself, you go like, okay, this is all just something is missing. Okay.
Something is missing.
And what I thought was interesting about your story is, when you are, I can imagine, I think when I'm in this moment of darkness, or where I'm going like, okay, this is not worth anything. I ask myself, why is this? What's going on? Okay. And I do say, okay, please, I need some help wherever it is from. And I try to auto-generate the energy to fill this up. So I'm lucky that I don't mood shift through drugs. Never got into that. Too much of a control freak. Okay. It's like, okay, this is even worse.
Good for you. Good for you.
At least I was controlling my darkness. Kind of thing.
I was not that lucky. Yeah, I was not that lucky. So good for you.
Yeah. No, for that I'm also too stingy. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. So much money for drugs? No.
Oh my God.
No way. Yeah. No way. I'm too much of an economist there.
Good for you. Good for you. No, I was like drinking, drugging. I did all the drugs. I even landed in jail for a few days, like in my 20s. Yeah, I went through it all. I was going through the grinder. Yeah.
Just as a little bracket in between, how did your family, how did your parents handle that, or handle you in your 20s? I know you've grown up, you're an adult, but still.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the crux of why I was struggling. My mom died when I was a teenager, and I was not in contact with my father. We weren't close at that time. Our relationship has mended supremely at now these days. So I didn't have anybody keeping an eye on me for a while. And when my mom died, it was really abrupt. So I just went into, and before then I, was doing really great in school and things like that. But when you realize there's no one there to perform for,
that's hard.
So I remember the first time I did, of all things, it was crystal meth. And it was about a year after my mom died. And for me, it was salvation in a way, because it was the first time I didn't feel anything. And it took the pain away. And that kind of got me on this really weird journey. But I still managed to get through UCLA. I still managed. But it got really dark for a while.
Yeah, well, and you were lucky, because usually these synthetic drugs, you take them once and that's it. you're pretty much done, they say.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is just
yeah.
me hearsay,
I know.
hearsay. But I think this is amazing. And having lost my own mother, as a 50-year-old, basically a year and a half ago, what lack, you feel then, and how it rips your heart. I cannot imagine what it's like when one is a teenager and goes through that. So that explains a lot. It doesn't excuse it, of course, as one would say as a mother or whatever, but it does explain a lot. But what I thought was interesting, and I also have that tendency, is when I am in this dark moment, the last person, not having anybody, last person I would turn to is my partner, because I just don't want to overload, even though that's your natural family then.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much that our partners could do. And I always minimized, probably even to myself, because I just felt like, well, I'll get through it. And I had a daughter at the time too. So, you just doing the right thing. And my clients were also kids off the streets and stuff. So, I kept it alive, but I kept it miserable and alive.
Now, what I thought was, and now we come to your miracle, and I want to understand what a miracle is. I don't know. Everybody says, okay, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. People go, and do you believe in miracles? Yes or no? Because as far as I understand from your journey, it was actually a friend that saw your depression, just suggesting, hey, do you want to talk to somebody that can kind of help you on a different energetic level, right?
Yeah, well, actually, she didn't even know that I was struggling. But during it was during a birthday, she bought me an angel reading. And I didn't know what that was. And I wasn't even sure if angels were real. I've always been kind of open-minded to that, it's possible, but I didn't know if angels were real. And so the person at the end, she said, hey, just it was a great session. I felt lighter. I felt brighter. And I could feel tingles and stuff. But she said, the angels really want to talk to you. So talk to the angels as if they're real and just ask them to show you. And so that's what I did. And then, the miracle I actually witnessed was a few days after that, where the bird, I saw a bunch of synchronicities, but even that wasn't enough for me back then to be like, because there's always that reasonable doubt. And I'm a very practical, logical person. So, but it was still fun. But essentially I was driving through the hood in Los Angeles, going to a client's house, and a bird fell from the sky, dropped in the middle of the street. And it had a broken wing as I started driving around it. And I didn't pray a bunch, but I was in the process of talking to angels. So I said, hey, angels, help this bird. I'm not going to get out in the middle of the hood. And, I don't know anything about birds either. Plus I'm going to be late to my clients. So I drove around the bird, prayed for it, asked them to take it out of its suffering. And then as I drove around it, I looked in the rearview mirror and something told me to stop. I kept on watching the bird. And as I watched that bird, it transformed into one tiny bird jumped out of the body of that bird, then a second, and then a third. 3 birds jumped out of the body of that bird, small birds. So the first bird was about pigeon size, and then the 3 birds that flew out of it were about 2 or 3 inches each, large. So as I watched that, I looked on the ground, and the bird was totally gone. And so at that stage, I did get out of the car just to make sure I saw what I saw. And then I felt this incredible love wash over me, like goosebumps, almost like static electricity. And the love that I experienced was not normal love. It's beyond human, just profound. And that was the miracle, the first miracle. That's when I saw with my own eyes. It was broad daylight. I wasn't high on anything. And I, from that day is really when my heart changed. And then it took me a while to kind of really process what happened. And because I'm a therapist, I know better than to talk about that, because people would have me hospitalized. So my friends would have me hospitalized as therapists themselves. So when I say miracle, I actually mean it. It was a miracle. But the biggest miracle was what happened inside of me from that point. Yeah.
What I find amazing is that in that moment you were actually corresponding with angels, but did you actually ask for, hey, give me a sign? So I move out of the realm of belief, which always leaves room for doubt, into the realm of I know, because if you know, then there's no doubt.
If you know, you know. Yeah. It's not belief system anymore for me. But I did not ask that day, show me a sign. But the previous 3 days, because it'd been about 3 days since I saw that woman, I was seeing, in the beginning, I was like, show me your reel. And then I would see a laundry truck drive by saying, Angel's Laundry Service with big wings on the side. So there was communication, but that was the doubt. But I still was having fun and I felt lighter already. I felt something. But, I was just at the beginning of my journey. But I think, it was definitely taking it to the next level. I saw the bird situation, which is, over the years, in the beginning, I was trying to kind of keep it close to me, not trying to bring it into my sessions, but I would be talking to these people one-on-one and feel the angels come in and then start hearing messages. And, it's awkward having to hold it back because I'm still trying to be so traditional as a therapist. So it was a process, but beautiful. And I didn't know why it happened like that, but as I look back now, it seems a little more obvious, why I needed a big smack across my head to, cosmic, awesome smack across my head to really inspire me to anchor more deeply into my soul and to start listening more clearly.
So maybe that was what you were saying, that darkness was just something like that wanted to be listened to and not ignored or thrown away or something. What I like what you were saying is, and I think this is the really interesting part, is actually the miracle was not the bird. Okay, it's almost like, it triggered something within you, which was this tingling all over, some sort of energy flow, be it from underneath up or the other way down, which I had this kind of experience, so I can relate to what it is, and it's awesome. I mean, that's another drug for itself. If you have that feeling all the time.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Good. Pretty good, but
pretty darn good. Pretty darn good.
Pretty damn good. If it happens, you go like, okay, I want some more, and it's not that easy. But taking this a little bit deeper, this believing, because you also look at, we all have that intuition. We all have that divine side. We all have that, what the jargon calls the sixth sense. But it's something that is not necessarily always required by our society or how we have to function. It's not necessarily what fits into the way, the MO of our world.
Yes.
So in your role, because you now are open, you are basically not only receiving, but you can also channel, as far as I understand from your work. You can also invite the angels in and then help whoever you are in the session with. But how does it really then impact your clients? How can you really say to them, you can feed your intuition and it is okay, and you actually have to listen to it?
Yeah, you have to. It's definitely optional, but the good invitations come through our intuition. So if we don't know how to feel, sense, or experience that voice, or learn how to build confidence in it and trust it, then our lives can take on a different tone. But the intuition for me is key. And that was one of the real first things that expanded for me, because like I said, I could always hear my tyrannical voice on the inside, but the soft and gentle one that was inviting me towards more joy, more happiness, more inspiration, that one was a little stifled. And it's still the most quiet voice. So it does take practice to engage with that aspect of ourselves. But I do believe, a lot of our suffering is, it's definitely not self-imposed, but it's a way that our soul gets our attention until we try to do things differently, whatever those things are. And I do believe we all have our own special recipe, and our problem is that we're following everyone else's recipe. So I followed the general recipe of marriage, good job, children, house, and it created a lot of suffering and tension and pressure because I was doing things from the outside in versus from the inside out.
Yeah, no, this is, I think, exactly what I was trying to get to. Just because everything works around does not mean that it actually comes from the inside and is a genuine expression, exactly, a genuine expression of what you feel in that moment, even though it's objectively speaking the right thing. Are you still married?
I am. I am. However, it's a very interesting situation because I also have a boyfriend. Yeah.
It must be an angel. It must be an angel. Okay, sorry for being indiscreet because I wonder, having maybe an inner development also causes ripple effect. If I change, the entire system around me changes. If I develop, if everything adjusts or not or falls apart. This is what I'm asking.
I did shift everything. And the thing is that I was under serious duress when I came to grips with the fact that my marriage wasn't functioning the way that I would love for it to, especially at this stage with 2 children. And yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to kind of talk about publicly because people have an idea of what angels are. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's not a religious thing. For me, it is about owning all that we are. What the angels and what Spirit has always taught me is owning who you are and showing up authentically, without blame, and working through your shame and guilt and asking for what you need. And so what has happened with my marriage is its own miracle, because through that process of really reclaiming my authentic nature and asking for what I needed, and doing it in a way that was very, I would say, non-projecting onto my husband as if it was his fault, but it engaged this entire conversation, these beautiful conversations with our marriage. And so essentially, we live on the same street. And he's right down the street. I live with my boyfriend, and we are kind of collaborative. So my husband and I don't have a romantic relationship, but I've known him since I was 15. So he's family. Yeah. So we found, what I love about Spirit is when it comes to any situation in our lives, and when we're working with our intuition, any situation in our lives can be resolved in that unique recipe that only we can do, or we know. So divorce wasn't an option for us because he's my family. So you don't divorce. I mean, you can divorce family, but not my style, because I love him so much. But there was these portions of our marriage that wasn't working. So we kept what was good and kind of worked with what wasn't good, I guess. So, wow, wasn't expecting to talk about this today, but I appreciate it.
No, I love this because I think this just shows like a certain type of evolution, and it's not to be judged, because what works for some people may not for others, and that's fine.
And I don't recommend it unless you are called to it.
Exactly. And you have the elements playing along, because in this case, it takes 3 to tango to have this happen.
Yes, exactly. It worked because my husband and we are both the people that we are, and we knew that if we were going to pursue other romantic bonds, that it would have to be really ethical and clear that family is the most important, and my husband is my family.
No, absolutely. And I love that concept. I live in a patchwork myself, so I'm the second wife. But for me, I always say that, I kiss the feet and in awe of my husband's ex-wife, because she created him the way he is, and he's perfect for me. So, and they've also been, together since they were 16 before I entered the picture. And she will always be also part of my life, because she's part of my husband's life. And unless you are open-minded about this, that there is, that family is family, and also having children together, then you don't enter in it. Okay, then it's just a taboo, right?
Patricia, you're so wonderful. You're wonderful. I love that you're open to that. I just feel like we have to create new systems for us all, for us all, and be more open-hearted about these things. I think there's been a lot of trauma around the conversations around divorce, or all of this stuff, and it's up to each of us to open up new pathways of love.
Absolutely, and I think integrating somebody's story, including the people, in their journey, in their story, is a form of love. You cannot just say, okay, I take you, but I don't take your daughter, I don't take your ex-boyfriend, I don't. No,
exactly.
It's a package deal. I'm sorry.
I know.
And sometimes it's a heavy package, and then you're still up for a decision. But you said just something which I liked very much, the authentic self.
Mhm.
And that, the conversation with the angels, and we are going to go more into the book. The authentic self, now that is an interesting evolution, because at least from my side, because you're told you have to fit in somehow. If you want to get somewhere, you need to play the rules, have to have the rules, and you put away a lot of that authentic self. Call it intuition, call it just the way you were when you were just born and you were full of, a little baby full of brown fat rather than white fat, good fat rather than the bad fat, whatever.
Mhm.
And then you lose the connection to the authentic self. And it's
Mhm.
interesting. My question is, do you connect to your authentic self first before you then can connect potentially to the angels, to those energies that help you, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, I think it's the other way around. I think my understanding in working with angels, and also looking at how folks have worked with them historically, how mystics and seekers have worked with them historically, is that there is a belief that angels open you up to your life mission, your life purpose. So I believe in working with angels and just kind of saying, hey, I know you're here, help me. The way that they help you is because they they see your essence. And so there's this encouragement to move in certain directions that are going to liberate you, liberate your soul, and also kind of point out where we're living out of alignment. So I found it to be reverse. You don't have to. I definitely was not embodying my essence when I encountered angels. They came to me at a time I was least likely, I would say, to experience angels. So I think they help open up our hearts to who we are and help us drop the conditioning, help us see through the lies of some of the conditioning that we have, so that we can realize that we are creating constantly. We're co-creators, and this life is like this light lump of clay that we can really shape in any beautiful direction that we like, with the right kind of support. So I found creating allyship is with the spirit world is a very practical choice, not an impractical or woo-woo choice. It's practical, very magical, and it helps really mysteriously align life with beauty. But we have to take risks. I just want to say that the intuitive path is not an easy path. We have to take risks, make bids for power, and be willing to move in radical new directions to align, to find that contact, to find that illumination, and to stay in that spotlight, that inner spotlight. So yeah.
Yeah, and as you were alluding to before, it takes a lot of courage, because anybody you talk to, the issue of, oh, I'm talking to angel goes like, all right, here we go. I'm supposed to handle this. And, most people are just not clued up, even to themselves, never mind to any kind of spiritual energies. But, talking a little bit about the experiences, and I'm quite sure that somebody has seen you, we call it serendipity or not. When my mom passed about 1.5 years ago, the day, she was cremated, she was gone, and I had to do something in the house while she was gone. And on that day, Corinne, I saw so many number plates with a triple digit number, like an angel number. Was it 888, 666? So the first one I said, okay, that's an angel here. And I knew it was angel numbers, but I wasn't into the subject at all. And okay, there's a 444. Oh, okay, there's an 888. And I was like, oh my God, that's so many. So I started taking snapshots. I said, oh my God, I have to photograph.
You have to. I know.
What's going on? And it's just too many that I see sometimes 1 or 2 a day. I go like, okay, fair enough. But it was, I think we ended up at 17 on that day. In those 3 hours that I was running around, I'm like, oh my God. So that is the first experience I had. And then I'm also going to have Lorna Byrne on the show. I don't know if you know her, Angel in My Hair.
No,
okay.
But so sweet.
Yeah, no, but this is an interesting one, because she is actually somebody that was born seeing angels. as she describes. And she was also taken as slightly cuckoo because as a child, she was running around, always looking around because she was seeing these energies in colors, in shapes and forms, and she started communicating, and people were taking her as a little bit, dim, until she kind of found out what she was all about. So before I read your book, I read her book, and she has if you don't know, just ask before you go to sleep, ask for an angel to appear. And it might not be straight away, but it may come. Okay. So I tried it on holiday a couple of weeks ago, and I said, okay, angels, if you exist, make yourself heard somehow. I don't care how. Went to sleep. That night, I woke up with a blast. And, these days, I don't know whether people still know the old-fashioned light bulbs. We kind of were born in the analog world still, where you didn't have only LED lights and whatever. And I woke up because it was like a little knack, like a little blast. And I was like, okay, oh my God, what happened? What happened? Nothing happened, right? And then I looked at my mobile to see what time it was. It was 4:44. Oh, how funny. Okay, fine. Went to sleep. And the next day I said, okay, I have to research what does 444 actually mean in terms of, which angel it is. And it is, okay, the angels are trying to communicate with you. I was like, weird.
It's like the ultimate angel number.
The ultimate angel number. And I was telling my husband, who is very open to these things. He's extremely religious, but he's very open to spirituality and to energies. And he just thought, wow, what an experience. But I left it at that because I just thought, okay, let's not dig any further. But this is the kind of thing where I think, okay, did an angel now say, hi, we do exist, or there's a lot of them around? And what is the difference between the angels that you are mentioning also in your book and the proverbial, guardian angel that apparently every one of us has and a lot of people believe in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I feel like with a lot of the angels that I worked with, they come from, the Judaic, like mystical side, the ancient angels there. But, I do want to say that our world is not limited by those that have been named. Every tradition all over the world will have different names for some of these. So I don't know exactly how many there are, but like our guardian angels, because I have studied a lot of traditional high magic, Western high magic, which is very enlightenment focused, how they look at the guardian angel, the holy guardian angel. It's almost as if it's a twin flame in spirit world. And as you call this spirit in, and one of the goals would be to integrate with it, then you become this Christ self and an illuminated self. So this guardian is really yours and is part of you, but it essentially contains all of those illuminated eternal aspects of self, your blueprint, all of those things. So that's how I like to look at guardian angels. Yes, they comfort us, they're there for us. You can really feel and sense your angel with you or within you, and the other angels are there to ally with us. As the spirit world is, it can ally with us and support us in different ways. But the guardian is particularly delightful
And gives you other type of energy, because one thing is to believe that you may have these angels that help you, that they don't do the work for you. I think this is where a lot of people may think, okay, especially reading, okay, angel wealth magic, great. I'm just calling a couple of angels and all of a sudden I've got a triple, million amount on my bank account. It doesn't work like that, does it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't. For sustained wealth. Okay, so I'll just say specifically for wealth, and one of the things that I write about in the book, the system that I created, what I laid out, does attract fast cash. So I've had, already, just even since this book's been released, I get people making comments all the time, sending me emails about, oh, I got, $20,000 here, $30,000 here. So that a lot of those did not require the person to do a lot. But when it comes to sustained wealth, and if you really want to embody and live a financially wealthy life. Now, in the book, I talk about if you're going to attract cash, make sure you want to attract the right kind of cash, right? Cash that opens your heart, that gives you more love, more freedom, based in work or activities that help elevate you and others, right? So I talk about that as something that is a value that, we might want to think about and attract in that way. But sustained wealth does require action from us. So Spirit can take us to the door, can open the door, can encourage us. It's only an invitation to walk through the door. A lot of people don't walk through the door because it's scary. Often they might have to put their neck out there. They might have to ask an angel investor for something or do this idea or just do something that they perceive is something that they would quote unquote never do or never be capable of. But Spirit's always going to dream bigger for us than we can dream for ourselves. But it's up to us to actually do the work, the legwork.
That's an interesting one because the word fear pops into my mind. Okay, yeah. So fear of yourself. So what if I listen to it? To the angel or to that voice, what does it really entail if I think it through? Okay, because most of the time it seems that actually you do rock the boat because you're not being your authentic self, and whatever you may then follow, you should be doing from an angel's point of view, you might not do simply because it would just create chaos for the system you're living. It would create potentially your freedom, but that's a different, this is unknown. This is fearful,
Yeah. And folks are triggered by a little mystery. We want a formula. We want to know exactly where this path leads. And that's what I was saying earlier. The intuitive path is not easy because it's a lot of risk taking. As the entrepreneurial path is, it's, you take risks and things may work out, they may not. And since we already used this as an example, that my marriage and really confronting that honestly and authentically and asking for this idea that kept going back and around and around and around. And it took me a couple of years to actually say it out loud, But yeah, a lot of times what we know and where we're guided to go is disruptive territory in our minds. Because I knew that it might end in divorce or that he would not take it well. And he did not take it well in the beginning, but we stayed in conversation. So, and we are both very traditional people, so it was very huge for me to encounter that when I was challenged. And I'm giving you this as an example. What you will do in order to really get into living from soul level, all of the roles that you play can come up for challenging. So my role as a mother was challenged. What kind of woman or mother am I for wanting to rock the boat here? This is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I felt it, what kind of wife, what kind of woman am I? And those were important queries because I had to confront those gatekeepers in order for me to learn how to trust my intuition and trust Spirit that things were going to work out. And they have worked out way better than both my husband and I being in kind of a miserable marriage and our children having to witness that for the last 10 years,
And I love that. I really, really love that because all these questions, there's a couple of things I need to look at in what you were saying. The first thing is, that you say, I am here and I'm doing something that is my authentic self. But oh my God, that means I'm a crap mother, a crap wife, a crap friend, a crap whatever you.
Turns out I'm really bad.
And am I? Is this really my authentic self? Do I want to be my authentic self? Do you know what I mean? It sounds really awful now, but we all go through this. If I really listen to that voice, is this really what I am really all about? Because what I'm doing is socially acceptable. It is what is expected, is what we've all known to, as you were saying, living the dream as it was implanted in us from outside, from inside. Yeah. So you start, in the self revelation, you start going oh my God, this is awful.
Mhm.
How
Yeah,
do you
pretty
deal?
much. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there again, there's another thing you have to, look at
Yeah.
yourself in a strange way.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the beginning stages of any, big transition or transformation, it sucks. I say, I mean, even when it comes to my career, when I realized that Spirit was inviting me to go more public, more even international, yeah, that was a big no for me in the beginning because I considered myself an introvert and shy. Okay, and so Spirit again guides you the door. They open the door and there's an invitation. And many of us misinterpret who we are. We don't know who we are because much of who we have become is based in trauma and protection. So my introversion, quote unquote, wasn't introversion, it was trauma. And the more that I just kind of took these risks more publicly, the more that a feeling, a vibe inside of me, it felt at home, which was shocking to me because I fought tooth and nail, just like I fought tooth and nail to have that conversation with my husband. So it doesn't feel like I know this is the right path. It's a challenge. It's a test for yourself. Like, who am I going to choose to be? This is one body. You have one chance in this particular body. How do you want to do it? Hey, you want to do it being trapped and imprisoned by other people's ideals? Or do we want to kind of see what happens if I start speaking more publicly about angels? Or if I decide that feeling love and romance is important to me.
Yeah, no. But this is exactly my next question. That was the other part of what you triggered earlier. And that is, sometimes you have this spaghetti ball in your head, and there is not one voice that you go like, okay, I know what I'm doing. That's the right thing to do, it seems. But then I have this voice, and then I have another voice. Or is it really another voice, or is that really just, that you do get confused where you go like, oh, I just don't want this anymore. You continue being in your zombie being because at least that works, kind of thing. How do you distinguish if you have really more than one voice? Or maybe you don't, you just think.
You do. I feel like we do. I like to see it as we have an inner council of elders, and some of them are more cranky and cautious than others. And then the other ones are like, hey, why not? A little more disruptive, right? And I always, these days, when I'm helping my intuitive students or clients, when it comes to up-leveling their own lives, the voices, fine. Listen to the counsel. But fundamentally, it's always you, right? What do you want? What do you want? And let's get out of this trap of, oh, is this the right thing or the wrong thing? When you're following your deeper heart, your desire. And again, because we're not trained like this growing up, we're not trained intuitively, which we all should be. Children should know that stuff is real and can be very beneficial. But yeah, that voice. I forget where I was going with that one.
No, it was just about developing the trusting the intuitive voice. And often we don't do it because, especially up to our 7th year in life, we just download information. And this is where traumas are created, for the rest of your life. And you have to break somehow through.
Yeah. So how I work with folks when it comes to this multiplicity of options is you hone in internally. You call on your essence, your guardian, your angelic team, and you really come into contact with what do you want? Like, what feels the most juicy? Like of course, sometimes it's like, oh, the initial steps are going to be a little hard, but long term, if you look at it 2 years from now, is that where you want to be? So your energy, your body's going to kind of get excited about certain things, and then your mind's going to want to shut them down. So Spirit has always guided me to follow my joy, but it's my choice. So, and the thing is, when it comes to our choice, we can always redirect later. So if it's like, oh, this is not what I was planning on, you redirect. But the goal is to be in motion so spirit can help you.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that, pivoting, changing, something that, again, people don't like to do. I come from the corporate world and, oh my God, change management and transition is like, oh my, no. Nobody wants it. Okay. It always rocks the boat. Nobody really likes it. But I think this ability to pivot, and, you have children, I have a daughter, and from when she was very little, I always said, okay, follow your heart, take your mind along, but follow your heart first. So when you come into a room and you just feel something is off. And I try to instill that in her with people, with places, with things she does or things she thinks about herself. This is where all these negative thoughts due to trauma also that need to be managed somehow. But in any case, I think dealing with children already and letting them into this world of themselves while still having to be a valid part of our society, because we cannot all run off to to Alaska and
Exactly.
fish. Okay, we have to function and we have to make, especially the next generation, this society function. But it needs to be, it's me in it. It's not just me being like a cog in a system and, I'm exchangeable. And I think this is something, this different vibe and energy we as parents, if we are enlightened, if I may say, need to instill in our children that trust in that gut feeling, as basic as it sounds.
Yes. And we have to listen to them. We have to understand that they are carrying extremely powerful medicine inside of them, and doing our best not to squash it. Like, if they don't want to hug their uncle, don't make them hug their uncle.
Don't make them hug their uncle.
It may appear rude at the family thing, but let your children, they know more than we do. So sometimes I consult with my youngest all the time. So her intuition is dialed in, So it's so important for all of us to learn how to retrust or reawaken that aspect of us, because we have known all along with those relationships that were tricky. We could feel it, but we're like, oh, we got to be nice.
No, this is exactly it. One day when we are like horizontal and we have these flashbacks and we're like, what, actually I was kidding myself, and most of the time I actually knew what was coming.
Totally.
Somehow, we do somehow for the wrong stuff, we have the crystal ball, because we kind of extrapolate where it's going to end if you continue that road, and have one door in the matrix rather than another one.
No, totally.
It's very interesting. Now let's get a little bit more granular with your book. And when I was reading it, I was asking myself, what is the difference between invocation, I think you said that in English, and manifestation? So, because if I invoke something, I go like, oh my God, this is going to be like one of those black masses, which I do not buy into. What is the difference? And, take us a little bit through the mindset you have to then really go through this step-by-step process to hire. I like that, to hire, but you're hiring, but you're not paying, are you? You're just receiving the divine energies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like that question about the difference between invocation and manifestation. It's a book on magic. So I use words that are kind of aligned with those. And I know that those words can be triggering to a lot of people because, again, of our conditioning, and, people get a little squirmy. But invoking is, we're essentially doing it all the time. It's just a matter of doing it consciously. I like to draw the parallel between the difference between invoking and prayer. So people are cool with praying. What they don't realize is that they're invoking. And invocation, though, however, so when people pray, they're praying on, they're like, hey, some force outside of me, come to my assistance, please. And when you're invoking, you're acknowledging yourself as part of the creation. So you're welcoming this energy, which in this book, I talk about how the angels, they're inside of us too. Like all of these potencies, you can see them as external beings, but also you can see them as archetypes that exist within our collective unconscious, which means inside of you. So these are potencies or frequencies, energies that live inside of all of us. Some of the doors are kind of shut. And so invocation is, let's say you're invoking Archangel Jophiel, you're bringing that energy, you're inviting that energy to come to life within you, that energy that represents beauty, creativity, and essentially illuminating, lightening any kind of ugly situation. So all religions invoke, but also all people invoke. We're invoking all the time with our thoughts. So doing it consciously towards the positive is a good idea.
I like that. So because this shows the intrinsic approach. And that also means if you are conscious, as you were just saying, you can really guard and guide your thoughts. And hence the energy that you then eventually mobilize, that motivates you to go either left or right, good or bad, or
yes,
not at all. Right?
Exactly. So because when we have anxiety inside of us, we're feeling funky, depressed, there's something inside of us. It's in us, whatever it is. So it makes sense to invoke something beautiful as a tonic, as a medicine to come and shift it. That includes, and for this particular book, you got money worries, money stress, it's in your body. You can feel the anxiety. And I do a lot of processes in the book to help us understand what's underneath the hood and might be preventing us from really attracting the level of wealth that we want. But it's an energetic shift inside of us that we're working for, which is why invoking is important.
And I think, especially with money, Corin, I think this is so important because a lot of people are hung up about money, never mind not having it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you can, and when I talk about angels, generally, I talk to a few of my friends about also your book and just the idea, they're the typical bounce back questions are, so, okay, those people, trapped in Turkey and in Syria and died because of the earthquake. What about the war in the Ukraine? So can they just sit there and invoke their angels and then all of a sudden somehow pivot their life to something better? How do you deal with when it comes to very hairy issues, money that for a lot of families, people is a taboo or something bad, or something that you just cannot believe that you can potentially invoke, but it's more negative than a positive connotation, war, some sort of disaster. How do you circle that in for people that just go, nah, just leave me alone with this, because it cannot be true. Otherwise, XYZ wouldn't be the case, or everybody could just unplug themselves from a disaster.
Yeah. I'm not kind of in the mode of trying to convert people. I think people have a right to just be who they want to be. And I try not to, impose whatever, but I just know that I'm doing work to, if whoever's interested, come and listen, give it a shot if you feel it in your body. So usually with people that are very shut down, I don't really mind. But the thing is, when I meet people face to face, especially when I was doing a lot of one-on-one practice, there's a lot of atheists that would come, right? And I remember, one of the first feedbacks I got with working with one of my first atheists, she emailed me 2 days later and said, "Thank you for introducing me to God," because she could feel it. She could feel it. And all of these wild things started happening for her. So it's like through people's own experience. But if you're shut down, you're shut down. It's like, don't waste your time. But some people are just curious, and all we need is a slight open mind for it. Now, addressing the great atrocities, I'm not here to spiritually bypass the fact that life sucks a lot of times, and that life is atrocious, and for a lot of people, and the inequities are vast. Some people are born into bodies. In my case, I'm a brown woman that was raised without cash. We were poverty. So some of us are born into situations that are atrocious, that we don't have access. This is why I love angels and love working with spirit, because it helps us hack a system and hack inside of ourselves to drop the crap that we've, drunken in and believe differently about ourselves. So we cannot, if we're in a war-torn environment, it's war-torn, okay? It's not just about, I'm just going to invoke it. For me, we cannot the ups and downs in life are real. That's why we're in these bodies. We're in these bodies. We cannot control that. But what we can do is support our inner state through any situation. And we can ask for protection. We can ask for these things. And I believe that a lot of that works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I know from working with folks for tens of thousands of people all over the world now that it helps a lot of people. And that is significant enough for me to continue my work.
No, absolutely. I so agree. I don't think that you can ever really change a situation. What you can change is, of course, how you take it, or what you somehow, how you feel it, how you experience it, and how you move forward. And I think the Shoah definitely showed from those survivors how each one of them, that survived, then picked up their life after the Second World War. Some were happy writing books, having their families, and saying, look, this happened to me, and I'm so glad I survived, and now I can spread the words. Others, they just had suicidal, they were suicidal, they couldn't deal. And I think this is also quite a bit due to how you're born. When you're more lucky, then you are more positive, and then more negative. Optimism, pessimism is so overused. But there is a basic DNA. If somebody's maybe a little bit more introvert or extrovert, more positive, and go like happy-go-lucky, the other one, oh no, everything is a problem or a threat. That is then already the basis how you would react to a war, how you would react being in the situation of everything falls apart because of natural disasters, or you're out of money. So there are those people that are out of money and always blaming, my parents, or like my family, or my boss, or the tax, or and then there are those that are like, okay, life sucks, as you were saying. What can I do about it? How can I feel about it to motivate myself, maybe to somehow react differently, and then change just my universe, not the universe, but my universe.
Yeah, because I do think like great grief happens, especially for sensitive folks, because we are in tune with the fact that so many people are suffering. And it is important to look at, okay, the whole world, there's a large percentage of folks that are struggling, but what's just my part? What can I do? And what's just my part? As opposed to feeling overwhelmed, and just learning each person here has their own role and their own medicine. And the more that we learn how to listen to that role and step into that role, the more that we're doing the work for the greater good.
Absolutely. And again, it's not to be judged. Those that do that, great. Those that don't do that, that's also great. If they come to another, this is, my conversations here on Mentoring TV are just because you're mentioning curious, is my tagline, stay curious. I just want to know. And then no mission or nothing. Some resonate, some things resonate, others don't. And this is how we eclectically go through life, hopefully maturing.
Exactly.
At some point, that's kind of like
Exactly. And leave folks alone, because I just feel like not everybody's dialed into, not everybody came into their body to pursue spiritual pursuits. So I'm not a huge fan of forcing stuff down people's neck. We don't need it. If they don't need it, they don't. I do. And some people do, but to each their own. I love it. I love the diversity of this planet, the diversity. I've learned so much from everyone has medicine. So I just love experiencing other people's medicine. They don't have to believe things that I believe or that I experience at all. Yeah,
that is, I think, very interesting what you're saying. It makes me think about the difference between religion and being spiritual. Sometimes I get the feeling, you're given a religion outside. And, my Kabbalah teacher, for example, he says to me, we don't spread Kabbalah. People come to us when they're ready, when they need. Same thing with angels. You start feeling uncomfortable saying, I cannot go on like this. And you start, kind of sucking at straws or pulling at straws. I don't know how you say that correctly in English or American English, but it is you making that effort. It is you going out searching and then potentially finding or not, depending. I don't want to give away what is in this great book, but 2 or 3 most important things you want to highlight in our conversation before I come to the last question of our great conversation.
Okay. Well, I think when it comes to the book, I just want to stress that book, the angels had me write that for people who are heart-centered and want to feel more empowered financially. Perhaps they have blocked themselves from believing differently about money. Maybe you've had issues your whole life. And I set it up in a way where we can really explore the inner workings of our beliefs and feelings around money and give you solutions to help you clear and shift that energy. At the end of the book, it's an 11-day ritual that really supercharges and super boosts your ability to bring in cash. But I do want to say, every book that I write and everything that I offer is designed to help us find inner wealth. And it's through this inner wealth. This particular book is to help us really attract actual cash. But the steps in there are laid out to help us find the wealth inside of our heart as well.
Absolutely. And I think anybody open to even try it is already one step in that direction that you were just saying about the inner wealth.
Yes.
Okay, Corin, last question. What's your perfect day?
I think my perfect day is a very inspired day. And each day would have some diversity in it. But my perfect day is one where I just feel that, I can feel love and where it feels inspired, and where I'm able to create spaciousness in my calendar to be present for the people that love me and my children and those people that I serve. I'm a bit creative, so I love having a really inspired day where I get to write and do a ritual. I love going outside to do ritual and to pray. So it's really the quality that I like to feel is inspired and connected to the people that I love and to the spirit world.
Beautiful. Thank you for being so open and frank about everything. Thank you so much for your work. Honestly, it takes an enlightened one that then says, hey, listen, this worked for me. I want to, bring it to whoever is in need, and be open-minded, hearted enough to really take the great gift you're spreading. So thank you so much for your work, and thank you for
thank you. I think it's more like you got to be a little crazy in order to let yourself go down these roads and do yeah. So
that's good.
I know
Crazy is good.
Crazy is like the new black, right? Weird is the new black. I'm into it. So I'm into it now. It took me a little convincing in the beginning. So I definitely invite other people to the trough.
Fabulous, And if you don't like it, you pivot. That's the thing. Nothing is forever in that sense. So thank you so much, Corin. Corin Grillo, Angel Wealth Magic. That's her latest book. If you're open-minded, interested, I thought it was a very interesting read for somebody to come out with a book saying, hey, if you want cash, this is the manual. I'm like, oh my God, and I work in finance. I thought, okay, what am I going to do? Yeah. Am I going to be at a crossroad or not? But anyway, that's another conversation altogether. Thank you so much, Corin, and all the best to you.
Thank you.
And thank you, my dear Mentory TV community. I hope you enjoyed my conversation. Very frank, very deep, very personal conversation also about Corin Grillo's own path, how she got where she is right now, and quite a bit of vision there as well. And I love the way she described also her perfect day. So I want to wish you a perfect day. Stay curious, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Together, we go out there. Together, we begin to share. Together, we find our way.